Okay, so please welcome Frank, our chair for the Business Breakfast Series. And Frank, remember to mute yourself after your introductions. Take it away.
Okay. Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Everybody good? Okay, good. Well, it is fantastic to see some more faces, but I welcome all of those that were able to attend over to VFW this morning. It's a great day. It's a great day. For those that I have not met, or even some that I have met, I own my own investment and insurance practice. I mostly had an ongoing business in the Warrenton area for about 36 years. And finally, after following my retired wife to her retirement location on the lake, I finally moved my practice here. So I work from home and pretty much on a referral basis. But I'm still passionate about what I do. Maybe a little long in the tooth, but sometimes the gray hair attracts more conservative investments. But anyhow, enough about me. I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled to have Amelia Stansell with us this morning. I think that the message is timely. She is someone that I've grown to know and love as almost a daughter. Probably as a daughter almost. And we knew each other through Rotary in Warrenton, and she offered a time to come down. Or, we were hoping she was going to be here today, but there was a conflict. But she offered her time, and she's a senior commercial loan officer with the UVA Credit Union, and she has a great family. She has two beautiful little girls, and I think when I thought about bringing someone to speak today, I think all of us can probably suggest we've all seen presentations on a plethora of topics, but on a rare occasion, something will strike a chord within that says, I have to take action. I have to do something. I can't sit back, listen to it, walk away, and bring it to my memory, when it hits, and then just go about our day. Amelia and I were sitting in a presentation a few years ago at Rotary in Warrenton, and I think she'll tell you this, and I'm not going to steal her thunder, but this struck a chord with her. To see people become passionate about something that she could have sloughed off, but didn't, and take it to that next level. You think about the stories that we've heard only in the last 7 days. A situation in Houston, Texas, where police knock on a door and discover over 90 people in a house, in a residence, and they're being trafficked. Situation near San Diego, California this week, where a boat smuggling individuals across the border capsized. 3 or 4 people died, dozens of people injured. We all have our own opinions about what's happening at our southern border. I'm not going to go into the politics of that, but right now we're in a critical situation. So with that being said, I want to turn this over to Amelia and let her give you some information about what she sees and her involvement with this trafficking issue. And that's enough. Amelia, take it away, girl.
Oh, thank you, Frank. I appreciate that. Thank you for the introduction and really the opportunity to be here with everyone. To say that I'm honored and truly blessed to be here with you guys, even though I'm here on the flat screen, is such an understatement. When Frank asked me if I'd be willing to do this, I said, absolutely. And to be able to have the opportunity to be able to share it, especially the business community, because I think that we as the business community are uniquely positioned to be the eyes and the ears. Like Marie said, whether it's through your hiring practices, it's through seeing people that come in and out of your business, people like you notice things and you're in a position to be able to act and to report. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. So we're going to talk about today, I'll tell you, it's disturbing. You're going to be concerned, you're going to be worried, upset, probably angry. Hopefully you'll be inspired to take action when we're finished. Hopefully you'll be like what Frank said with me. I heard it, and I heard God whispering to me, you need to do something. There's a Matthew West song out there of the somebody do something, and shakes his fist at God, like, why don't you do something? I did, I created you. And I really feel like I was called to work on this project, because I'll tell you, this is so far outside of my realm of what I would want to spend my time working on, that I truly feel called to be here. And I feel called because of my opportunity to be able to talk to the business community through Rotary especially. So I'm thankful that somebody's here from the Louisa Rotary Club. Thank you for the shout out and for being here today. That's given me such a platform to be able to speak and to be part of the larger global community on human trafficking, modern slavery. And then I'm a mom of 2 little girls. I look at my little girls and it scares the living dickens out of me to think about what could happen. So along the journey of learning about this and learning about sex trafficking, numbers really resonate with me because I'm a banker. So let's talk about what some of those numbers are. And I find that things kind of haunt me once I get it in my head as the banker. So one, human trafficking, also known as modern day slavery, they're kind of used interchangeably depending on where you are in the world and what you look at. Trafficking is actually the moving of people, the trapping, the moving of people. Modern slavery is the actual work that they do, whether it's sex trafficking or it's labor trafficking, organ trafficking, and so on. So things that kind of stick. One, modern slavery is the 2nd largest criminal enterprise in the world, 2nd largest behind drug trafficking. But yet we don't talk about it because people are just very unaware. They think that when often what we think about is after 150 years ago when the Civil War ended and we freed the slaves, it's over. When in fact, there are more slaves living in the world today than there were then. So that's kind of a shocking number when it started to kind of resonate with me that there's 40.3 million people enslaved worldwide. To put that in numbers that you might be able to get, because that's a big number, and it's like, how do you figure out what that is? That is more people than there are Canadians. There's about 38 million Canadians. There's more enslaved people than there are people in Canada. Like when you start to really think about that, that's huge. So that includes labor, sex, organ trafficking, child soldiering, and child marriage. So all of those things fit into that modern slavery number. So while all of those things are horrible, absolutely horrible, I'm not saying any is more important than another, I feel specifically called to work on sex trafficking. And that's what we're really going to talk about today, is that sex trafficking piece, because that's the part that we often see in our communities, that we hear about. We see the woman that mentioned that she had the girls that were dealing drugs for their boyfriends, probably were being groomed to get into sex trafficking if they weren't already, and they just didn't admit to it, which is also part of it, is that it's very shameful and there's a lot that goes into sex trafficking. So let's like boil that down a little bit. So what does sex trafficking look like? What are these numbers that stick in your head? 1 in 5 US teens are going to be approached by a trafficker online. 1 in 5. As a mom of 2 little girls, I go to a little Lutheran church out here in Warrenton. And during the days when we actually had in-person Saturday night services that were normal, we just went back to normal. But when we get people there, there's usually 5 or 6 kids that go up for the children's sermon. 2 of those heads are mine. And when I look at it, go with 1 in 5 are going to be approached, is that going to be one of mine? Are they going to know what to do? Are they going to be able to say no? Are they going to be able to raise their hand and say, Mom, Dad, here's what happened, and know that they're going to be empowered to do that? They're going to be trusted to have that conversation. I hope so. I hope that if I do my job right, they will. If we as a community do our job right, they'll feel comfortable with it, or those other kids that are there will feel comfortable with it. Some other numbers that stood out to me is 1.6 million children run away from home each year. It's according to the national runaway hotline from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So 1.6 million children run away from home each year. Of those children, 1 in 3 who run away will be approached by an exploiter within the first 2 to 3 days of being homeless. It's a lot of kids that are going to get trafficked when they run away. That's a big number. Another one that stands out to me is that 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused by the age of 18. 1 in 4. So when you start thinking about that, if some of the things that make you vulnerable to being trafficked is running away and or being sexually abused, we have a lot of vulnerable kids living amongst us in our homes, in our neighborhood, in our churches, in our schools. There's a lot of vulnerability out there. So what does that look like? This is the one that gets me, is that every 30 seconds in America, a child is sold for sexual purposes. Every 30 seconds. So I've been speaking now for 4 minutes and 42 seconds. So that's 9 kids have been sold for sexual purposes today. If you think about saying the Pledge of Allegiance or the Lord's Prayer, or we're supposed to be singing Happy Birthday a couple times to wash our hands and dry them because of COVID-19, every time you do that, a child is sold for sexual purposes in America, here. This is not something that is just overseas. It is not something that's just in big cities. It is in every community around the country, around the world. And that's why I think we as a business community are uniquely qualified and positioned to be able to, once we learn more, to take action to be able to stop this. So let's talk about a couple more additional facts that are out there, just so you have kind of an idea of what we're looking at. The average age of entry into prostitution is 12 to 14 years young. Think about that, 12. That's 6th grade. 6th grade, these kids are so young and so vulnerable. And I look at my daughters, who, my oldest just turned 9 last week, and that's your 8-year-old and your 18-year-old to get to 12. And you start looking at that and you start realizing these are 6th graders, these are 4th graders, these are even younger that are getting trapped into prostitution. That makes it sound like it's their choice, right? Prostitution. It's not their choice, it's rape. Flat out, that's what it is. These young ladies and young men, because this is not a gender specific thing, that there are boys that are absolutely abused and that are sold as well, but they're often abused by their pimp, whether they're boys or girls. They are drugged and they're beaten into submission. So they don't have a way out. They don't have a support network there. They're abused by the men that they serve, on average 20 men per day, or buyers. Typically it's men that are the buyers on this. That is a very typical thing, 20 a day. So if you think about that, the way that the human psyche works is each of those encounters is registered into your psyche as an individual rape. So that is 20 rapes a day on average, for the average of 2.5 years. That's a lot. You start thinking about a 6th grader, 7th grader, 5th grader going through that, and that kind of abuse and that kind of torment and that and everything on their psyche, what that does to them. People say, oh, it's prostitution, it's their choice. No, it's not. They're minors. The money doesn't go to them, it goes to their pimp. Even if they give a little bit of it, is it worth what they're going through? Absolutely not. They usually have their identification taken away. They're if it's sex trafficking and labor trafficking as well, they get their identification taken away, so they no longer are a person. I no longer have the ability and to be able to go tell the authorities what's going on, to tell somebody at a store or wherever I'm at, because I don't have an identity, let alone the papers to have identification. A lot of times, especially in sex trafficking, the threats are made against their family members. So that's part of how they trap them in, is that they're going to make those threats against the family members, that if you escape or if you do something, I'm either going to hurt the family members, I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to embarrass you and shame them into staying, because they'll tell their family, or they threaten to tell the family what they're doing. And how could anybody possibly love me after what I've done? Think about that for a sixth grader, what that does. If they survive their victimization, if they survive it, right? 20 rapes a day, 2.5 years, that's a lot of victimization. If they survive that, the average lifespan is 7 years. Lifespan is 7 years. Why that's important is it also takes 7 years to deprogram a trafficking victim. Truly is live or die. There is no gray area. When that's really started to sink into me, I was angry, I was frustrated, I was trying to figure out what to do. I was trying to figure out who's the buyer. You know, all this is going on. Well, that's because of supply and demand. I'm a banker, economics, supply and demand. So who's the buyer? Who is this person that's out there? And when I found this out, I was shocked that 1 in 7 adult males have paid for commercial sex. 1 in 7. Again, banker, I visualize stuff. I go to church, I go to Rotary. I did a presentation for the Blue Ridge Gang and Drug Task Force, or Narcotics Gang and Drug Task Force down in Culpeper. And it's a lot of men. It is really hard for me not to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because 1 in 7 have paid for commercial sex. Sometimes, yes, it's with a prostitute that's by their choice. Okay, most of the time not. So I was at an event, and I asked a detective the question: what did your average buyer, when you made arrests, what did that John look like? Like, just describe this. And he's like, well, they're between age 35 and 45, white, male, Christian, married, had kids. Looks like not what you think it does. I don't know what I expected. I guess I expected the lounge lizard, I don't know who I expected, but I didn't expect somebody that would look like, sound like my husband and his friends. And so when that started to really sink in too, of like, this is happening in every community. It's happening everywhere, and it could be happening right here. So when I started digging into that, I was like, holy cow. And I was at an event, and I originally had thought, like many of us think of trafficking as seeing Taken with Liam Neeson back in the day. And you think of like something that happens over there in these third world countries or Eastern Europe or whatever. And then when I started to find out that it really happens here, and by here, I mean here in Virginia, it really shocked me. So digging into the numbers from Polaris and the National Human Trafficking Hotline, Virginia has the 16th highest incident of reported trafficking cases. 16th highest. That's 189 cases in Virginia in 2019. The 2020 numbers aren't out yet. They'll be out soon. They usually come out around June. But 189 cases in Virginia in 2019 with 370 victims. That averages about 2 victims per case, which is about the national average. So your traffickers aren't necessarily running 20, 30 girls. They just need 2. Just need 2 to be able to make the money that they make. So that was kind of surprising to me. 138 of those cases in Virginia involved some sort of sex trafficking. So whether it was sex standalone or sex and labor trafficking, it's about 73% of the cases then. And what was interesting about this is that when you read the data and you read the information that's out there, it's estimated that less than 1% of trafficking cases are ever properly identified. Less than 1%. So you see those numbers, multiply it out. That is a huge number, because this is what's actually properly reported and actually getting into the numbers. Because like we heard from the woman earlier, you might suspect it's it's human trafficking or sex trafficking, but if it's not properly reported and tallied, it doesn't count in there. So that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time preaching on. So where are those cases in Virginia? Here's the Polaris map. It's nice that they put out this heat map every year for us. This is where they are. A lot of it is obviously Northern Virginia, Richmond, down around 81 and down around the Norfolk area. But you can see they're in rural areas that you kind of look at it and go, well, why there? Well, because there's buyers there. Wherever there's a buyer, if there's demand, there will always be supply, right? made me really stop and think about that. You look up in the Northern Virginia and the DC area, whew, look at those hotbeds, man. So what is trafficking? I'm not going to dig super deep into this because I want to have time for questions, but I'm going to give you some of the information here. It's shocking that you can go out and Google how to traffic. I guess if you can learn how to make a pipe bomb on YouTube, you can learn how to traffic out there as well. But there's really four basic steps to it. First is the luring, just putting it out there. This is where the online luring, that 1 in 5 children are going to be approached online. It's that little, oh, you're so pretty, you should be a model. Does that hook them? Is that luring? It's that getting them to respond to be able to get them in there. Once they actually get them to respond, then comes in the grooming and gaming. This goes back to what the woman was talking about earlier. Were they being groomed from selling drugs into possibly being a sex trafficking victim? It's not a far jump, and often they're very, very closely related. From there, it's the coercion and the manipulation, and then the actual exploitation. That process can take anywhere from days to months, and the traffickers have time. They have nothing but time. And if you move on, they move on to the next one. You're just a commodity. School, your children's friends are all just a commodity. They will move on to the next one and the next one, because again, they run on average too. So they don't need your specific kid. They just need a kid to be able to do this. So what are some of the signs of grooming? A lot of it is that it's hard to know, because is this a teenage thing? Because teens are weird, tweens are weird, like they go through those strange steps. We kind of have to look for those things that are really unexplained, that major changes in their life, such as all of a sudden they have unexplained money, clothes, phones, tablets, games, or other expensive items. Where did they get it? Why did they have it? Who gave it to them? Why did they give it to them? Is this new boyfriend that came out of left field? Well, where did they come from? How did you meet them? Dig in more. Are they really a human being? Can you have them over for dinner, or are they just an online friend that they met that shipped them something? So getting to know more about that. Do they change the way they dress? Are they suddenly more promiscuous in how they dress or how they act? Do they have a new friend group, which is obviously something teens do? I know I dropped friends and stuff when you're a teen. You're trying to find yourself, which is why it's hard as a parent to go, is this a teen thing, or is this like a legit, like my kid's being groomed? So that's where you have to start piecing this stuff together. But do they drop friends, or do they get new friends? And what do you think of that new friend group? Or, what can you find out about them? Unexpected absences, whether that's from school or from church or from youth groups. Are they not showing up where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there? Again, also a teen thing, because I'm pretty sure I did that, and I think we all did. But again, you're looking for those patterns. Rapid changes in behavior, again, teens. But are they suddenly really moody? Are they really depressed? Are they distancing themselves? All of these things in combination can often tie into looking like grooming, or possibly even actual trafficking. But in that early grooming stage, are they withdrawn? Are they not talking to you as much? Do they have unexplained injuries, bruises, suddenly getting tattoos, cuts, weird things like that? Are they hiding things from you that you should know about? So there's some great resources and I'm happy to send this program to anybody who wants it, but there's some great resources that are in here that you can go out and get more information. If you think this might be happening to somebody in your life, go out and get more information and move forward. But all of these things are adding up. So how do you know if your child or grandchild or neighbor or your friend's kids are possibly being groomed? Well, spend some quality time with them and ask them some questions. Having that open conversation, getting them to open up to you, could help a potential victim say, here's what's going on with them or their friend, because they probably aren't going to admit that it's them, but their friend is going through whatever is going on. So asking open-ended questions, digging into them, seeing if they have a plan for their future, seeing what's going on in their lives. And we know that's so easy with your own children, right? Because your own children open up to you all the time. I get that they don't. So that said, is encouraging your kids and the youth in your lives to have 3 adults in their lives that they can open up to. 3. And the reason for 3, and you can look at the list here, but the reason for 3 is because 40% of cases of reported trafficking are familial. Means that their family member, most often their mom, could be their dad, their uncle, their brother, their cousin, their grandparents, their siblings, are trafficking them. So having people outside of their family they can open up to and ask questions to. So that's on us again in the business community and the community as a whole to be asking these questions and digging in and getting to know those youth in your life, because you may be the person that asks the right question, that gets them to open up, that gets them to say, here's what's going on to me, or again, my friend. And from there, you can take action. So how do you take action? What can you do? First of all, tell people what you heard today. Go out and evangelize about this. Share it. The more you share it, the more the word gets out there, the more chances that we have to protect our communities. Save these phone numbers in your phone. I'll tell you, I have it in mine. I text it to people all the time. Get these phone numbers in your phone. If you see something, say something. It is not your job to investigate it. It is your job, well, unless you're law enforcement, it is your job to report it. Again, less than 1% are reported. That's because people are afraid to take action, to say, I saw something that just wasn't right. There's this change that's going on. If you report it and you get it in there to the National Human Trafficking Hotline and 911, report it to both of them. And the reason you want to report it to both of them is, honestly, our law enforcement is stretched. They oftentimes don't have the training that they need. We assume that they've all had this training. A lot of them haven't had the training on human trafficking cases. The dispatchers haven't had the training on the human trafficking cases, so it gets missed. So if you report it to both, the national hotlines start piecing together and go, here's what's happening in Louisa, here's what's happening in Warrenton, here's what's happening in Charlestown, here's what's happening in Baltimore. Maybe they're related. Maybe that one case in Louisa, there wasn't enough evidence there, but these other ones tied together, we now have a case. So if it's properly reported, they can put together the cases. And again, it's not your job to do to put together the case. Your job is to report it. The other things that you can do is when you see it on Facebook and in other places, share missing persons posts. It's amazing how well those work. There's a reason why the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children put it out there. Share them. Check the date, see if you get some information like, hey, do a quick Google search to see if they're actually still missing, but it's okay. But just share it. It's amazing how that one little share may be what brings them back. Somebody may have seen them in the grocery store in their business. Feel free to introduce me to more clubs and organizations. I do my dog and pony all over the place. I have also, I believe that Pam, thank you, I believe you brought in some restroom posters. These are on legal size, so I cut them in half here, so ignore the fact that they're kind of funny looking here, but normally legal sized. These are in English and Spanish. They refer back to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which covers the US, Canada, and Mexico. I encourage you to print a bunch of these and just hang them up in every restroom stall where you go. Honestly, where you go. And the reason for that is in a restroom stall is one of the few times that a potential trafficking victim can have any kind of privacy. So they may be in that bathroom stall and look up and see that and be able to call. They can call, they can text, they can chat to be able to get the help that they need. And so taking the opportunity to do that is important. If you want, Pam has the PDF of it. I have the PDF of it. We're happy to give you, we're happy to send it to you. If you want to print them out and post them everywhere that you go, we'd be happy to have you do that. I will say, I mentioned earlier on the investigations piece, a lot of your law enforcement is not trained. I had the opportunity, my co-chair with our organization for the Fauquier County Human Trafficking Prevention Project is our sheriff. And he came to me and said, hey, I've got this great training that I want to put my entire department from the traffic officers and dispatchers all the way through our major crimes investigators, soup to nuts. I want everybody to go through it, but we can't afford it. And a lot of this comes down to money. There's a great organization out there called the Reed Technique. The Reed Foundation does the actual trainings, and it's well known. And you can get grants to be able to help fund that. I can help you in your Rotary Club access those funds to be able to get your local law enforcement, your Department of Social Services, your Commonwealth's attorney, and so on, all trained to be able to investigate these things, because oftentimes it's a training issue for our professionals because they just don't have the budgets to be able to make it happen. So let me know and I'm happy to do that. Lastly, what else can you do? Bring in more speakers, learn more, share information, get the community aware of what's going on. And I'm happy to work with your local Rotary Club, or any of you who get today, walk away and go, I feel called, I feel convicted to work on this. I am happy to help you with that. We just put together a community awareness and prevention education strategic plan for the Rotary Action Group Against Slavery as our international organization. I just actually hit submit on it yesterday, and finished it. It's been a long process, but I'm happy to share that because it's really built for what a local community, a local individual can do to be able to bring a human trafficking prevention project in their local community, whether you're a Rotarian or not. And I'm happy to be able to give you that information. Here's my contact information. I'll leave this up for a second. Otherwise, you can get it from Frank or from Pam or from Tracy. And thank you very, very much for the opportunity to speak to you guys, to share with you. Hopefully you get a little convicted out of this and you want to take that next step. Please reach out to me if you want to, and I'd be happy to share more with you. With that, thank you. And I'm here for questions, and I can stay as late as you need.